Welcome to the Founders Odyssey podcast, where we interview founders that have bought companies, sold companies, and taken companies public. I'm seated here with Sam Taggart. He is the founder of D2D Con. He's been doing it for 8 years. 8 years straight entrepreneur, and there's a lot of nuggets of wisdom that we can take from Sam. So today we're going to get into sales, understanding how to build trust, and build an actual empire, which is exactly what you've done. So I'm excited once again to get to know you a little bit better and also share you with our audience.
Yeah, no, it's been a long time coming. It's
Absolutely.
been fun. I met you kind of like right when you moved to Utah, right?
Yeah, it's been a little while. We've been here now for about 2.5 years. So share with me a little bit about an inspirational figure in your life. I'd love to start there, and then secondly, we'll go into what does entrepreneurship mean to you.
I think my dad is the first one that comes to my mind, and I know that sounds like cliche, but he is the essence of an entrepreneur, and he went through, the entrepreneur roller coaster, and I was able to kind of watch. I think that I'm the fourth of 6 kids, and I'm 10 years younger than my brother, and so the experience that I had versus my brother had with a dad as an entrepreneur was much different. So I went. As a kid, my dad started a company called OGO Bags. I don't know if you ever heard of OGO. Big.
Oh wait, OGGI.
Yeah,
those are awesome.
Big bags. And he sold out to his partner, so it was kind of like a bad breakup. And then he started land development and did awesome in land development. And then we moved to California to do land development in 2006. And he's buying up farms. And then 2007 hits in California. It was the first to crash and lost everything. And so he's 50 years old, lost everything, his friends' money even, he's in debt tons. And to watch him bounce back and go through that while I'm in high school and college. And then probably 22, he's now probably 60 years old, living in a 2-bedroom condo, driving a Buick, my grandma's Buick, where we grew up in Park City, and I was in one of the richest cities in the country. So to see him lose everything and then put it all on the line again and start a company called PMD in his 60s that then was, in a few years valued at $100 million. That's really cool. To watch
inspiring.
him.
So what did it make you feel, as a young kid when you're seeing your father go through those struggles? What do you think the wisdom that was installed into you during that time?
I think what was the most inspiring is he didn't I think a lot of entrepreneurs self-sabotage their lives. It's almost if my whole worth is based on my business, where I didn't even know until later in life that we had lost, negative millions of dollars. And my dad was able to turn work off at 6 o'clock or whatever and show up as a father. He was still able to take us on experiences and still able to do family scripture study in the morning, and the marriage didn't fall apart because he's depressed. You know what I mean? It was he was able to withhold a high standard of life despite his financial situation being devastating. So imagine all your college buddies, owns Marriott, owns big commercial, successful entrepreneurs, and all of a sudden you go to I'm in my 50s and 60s and I lost everything.
And everything I built, yeah.
My friends are all country club members, and I'm driving my, my parents' Buick that's 20 years old to go meet them for golf that they're paying for. The humbling element of that roller coaster, and just see my dad keep his head up and keep his head on, and you know what I mean? I think that was the most inspiring piece.
So what does entrepreneurship mean to you?
Freedom. To me, it's independence. I see us in the election right now, and who knows when this comes out, but I look at the true essence of the American dream is entrepreneurship. And I don't think everybody's built to be an entrepreneur, but I think everybody's built to have a sense of freedom. They have freedom of thinking, freedom of innovation, freedom of choice, freedom of time, freedom of finance. And entrepreneur is the essence of, you can go create as much money as you want, you can work when you want, you can X, but then it's with discipline creates freedom. And I think where most people's entrepreneur journeys fail is the lack of discipline, investing in knowledge, going through that trials of the call it the ones and tens. It's like they live in this comfortable complacency of like, I don't want to risk anything, so I'm living in 5s and 6s, but I'm not getting the ones of like the late nights, lost everything, now I'm millions of dollars in debt. But they're never going to get the 10s because it's like, I just sold my company for 20 million or whatever, and it's like, oh shit, like that's like life changing. And so it's the people that are willing to live with the ones but also reap the 10s are the true free, in my opinion, of an entrepreneur journey.
I just recently saw something and somebody had said that if you have to follow the process and remove emotion at times, right? Because the process, if gone forward in that area, you're going to continue to reap the benefits based on the process. And which really leads us into the next situation here and the next topic, which would be the process that you have learned to make money and to build money off of sales and within the realm of entrepreneurship, which I'm interested to hear more about.
Yeah, and I think that's the first step. I think so many people are like, I want to run a business, but they never learned the skill set of sales. It's like mom goes and it's like, I'm going to be a realtor. I'm like, no, you're going to be a sales professional before you're a realtor. Real estate is the vehicle. I'm going to start a beauty company. Like my dad PMD was a beauty product. When he's like, I'm getting into the personal microdermabrasion product, and he's like going to QVC and he's on infomercials with like beauticians. I'm like, what, Dad? But he's like, it's business, bro. You have a widget, you sell it, you make a margin. Here's a good margin. Next, right? Like, and I'm like, oh. So I think that's the piece that my dad started in college selling Kirby vacuums. And it's like, I look at, I did door to door a lot longer than my dad did, but like, I think that too many people try to circumvent the ability to sell a market, and then they go say, I want to be an entrepreneur in a business, but then they devalue because maybe perception. I don't like salespeople. I'm like, well, when you start a business, you sure as hell will like salespeople.
Yeah.
You want salespeople working for you. Maybe you don't like getting sold, but like you sure as hell will appreciate a good marketer or a good salesperson. And I think that's the piece where too many entrepreneurs struggle with. And so I have a book coming out right now. It's called Eat What You Kill. And it's actually the 4th book I've published, but it's all about teaching kind of a carnivore mindset in sales, which I think in today's economy, too many people think, oh, I took on an e-commerce platform and I'm in sales. I'm like, no. Or I worked at Buckle in the store. I know sales. And I'm like, no, Buckle knew how to brand and put themselves in a mall that happened to have customers walk in needing a jeans. Yeah, I was like, you didn't do sales. You did talk to the person. Like, to me, I think it's an art that is like almost like a language. It's like learning Spanish or learning a new language. It's like, how do you understand what language patterns, what buying profiles, what pullbacks and objection handling skills and things like that can you use in conversation to get people to transact, which is powerful.
I mean, I love sales, and I think we're speaking to the choir here. I love body language, right? You can read people, and really you can lead a conversation, right? And so to this, let's go to the next thing here. So frameworks, right? We're talking about frameworks, and do you have a framework within the sales process that you typically follow that you can use or have scaled, within organizations?
100%. And what's interesting is it's like frameworks within frameworks. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
So it's like, here's my 5 steps to a sale, but then each of those steps have sub-frameworks. Then you could go even into the more micro of each of those frameworks. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I look at sales as like an art. So my first book I wrote was called ABCs of Closing. And it was like the A was the assumption close. The B was the bandwagon close. The C was the competition close. And each of the letters of the alphabet was a close. And I said, well, now the next book I should write is like the compound book of the ABCs of Closing. Like A plus D with an extra E equals close in this scenario. And I started looking at sales as like almost like a science. Customer gives you X objection or situation. How do you know which tools to pull out of your toolbox to say, let's solve this with this? Does that make sense? And I think when I think of the macro of sales, it's very simple. It's prospect, so find a potential buyer. It's pitch, which is gain interest and get their attention. It's present, which is now create value, solve the problem, close, ask for the order, or closing is throughout the whole sale, right? Like even from the prospecting side, you'd be closing. And then it's how do you do the follow-up and delivery and maximize, right? So that would be like the fifth. Customer delight, get the referral, fulfill, upsell, rehash, you know what I mean? All that piece that I think a lot of people almost forget. I'm like, you just made me a fan of your maple syrup by like the delivery of the thing. It's like, wow, what was the X factor of, it came in a freaking maple leaf, like not like your stupid one you get at the store. And I'm like, I don't even know if I want to use it. I want to like put this on my shelf and like.
Presentation's everything, right?
100%.
And we see that in sales, and you know, and also like self-efficacy is a really big one in sales too, and understanding your belief in yourself. Yeah. You know, I think that, you know, because if you don't believe that you're going to make that sale, you're not going to make it. You know, I'd like to go down that route. So let's talk a little bit about the psychology framework in regards to being successful in the route of a quote-unquote sale, but also let's look at it in the route of a goal, because it's, you know, a sale could be just your long-term goal that you have now sold yourself on. So how do we get into our mindset?
Love that. So like in this book, Eat What You Kill, I mean, the first section is mindset, right? And there's so many people that are herbivores versus carnivores. And so I like to teach a carnivore type sales style, which takes the hunter mentality versus the gatherer mentality. If that makes sense. Which I think there are a lot of sales professionals that have almost like herbivoritized, meaning they started out as carnivores, but through marketing and they have a referral base and they've gotten softer, and now they've herbivoritized. It's like now to like get the carnivore back today. Culture today, right? Like, so it's like we break the mindset back to this eat what you kill mentality of like, I can go create revenue today. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. Like I will make it happen regardless. There's nothing on my calendar. There's no leads coming in. I can go find a deal. Does that make sense? Like if you had that mentality of, I will pick up the phone, I will go door to door, I will go ask for referrals until I get connected to somebody that will buy my shit. Like that to me is the mentality you got to have. Number two, because too many people then want to make a blame of, oh, it's the club, not the golfer. Oh, it's the lead, not the salesperson. Oh, it's the market, not the product, or the person actually selling it. Because I could debunk you with a really good sales professional that'll sell it more expensive in the same market to the same customers that you do. You just don't know how to sell.
With greater efficiency and scale.
Exactly. And I'm like, so stop blaming.
They make results, not excuses.
Exactly.
Because we constantly hear that.
Because I'm like, the gatherer in a apocalypse, in a hard scenario, a down economy, if you really think about it, they get extinct. The hunters are the ones that'll survive. And I think this is where we've had a 10-year uptick in economy to where people like could start a magic funnel online and make money. But in a down economy, go show me a guy that's like, cool, my ad spend just got half as good. Does that make sense? Cool, my leads just stopped coming in like they used to. Now show me an entrepreneur. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I got a good one for us. So let's talk about empathy. Okay. And let's talk about the understanding amongst being able to create, because the book that you've written, Eat What You Kill, is aggressive, right? Yes. It's an aggressive title. But I believe that there's a way that you can be aggressive, but yet not passive, but you can still be aggressive, but connecting with your audience.
Oh, you don't look at me, the hippie ponytail kid, as like the tatted up muscled like military dude. Like when I go to a home, I am not like, you have to buy salesperson. I am definitely hunky-dory, you're going to love me, hug me, and not realize you just got sold, right? So if you really take the hunting at its core, okay, let's take Eat What You Kill. The Indians, when they hunt, or the African Americans, when they kill an animal, what does it look like once they kill that animal? There's so much empathy and there's so much like grace.
There's celebration.
There's a celebration of life. Like it's like, thank you, God, for providing me this animal. I honor this because it is providing for my family. There is no like, the modern day hunter, in my opinion, is the guy that's like, look at this trophy head that I had on my walls, but I didn't even eat any of the meat, and I had no, like that to me is where the sales gets the negative connotation, is it's so transactional. Where sales is such a good thing. You don't eat. Your business doesn't eat unless you effing transact. There is no economy unless people are moving money, which is all sales. It's a lubricant of society. Like it is. So let's not shame the fact that people are hunting and trying to make their businesses go around. Let's have pride in that but let's empathize with the customer and show compassion. And the way that I look at Eat What You Kill is I care enough about you to sell you.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't care enough about you, I wouldn't be so persistent and passionate about what I do. And because I believe in what I do and I care so much about you, I have to be the greatest salesperson in the world, because you'll wiggle out and you'll have your insecurities and you'll have your fears and doubts, and nobody will ever get you to transact and see the beauty of my product or service. But because I'm so good, you're welcome.
I love that. Because I'm so good, you're welcome. Well, because you've asked the right questions.
Yes.
And I think it's very important, right? The quality of our life is defined by the questions that we ask.
Love that.
So in every sense of the sales cycle, it's on us if we haven't asked the right questions to provide the right value. So, I mean,
I just got out of a sale. Like, you literally walked in here and those guys were walking out, right?
Yeah.
And I had to tell them straight up. I said, look, I'm not going to sell you our most expensive thing, and I will sell you out of this before I sell you into this. I had to start the conversation. They're like a medical company that wants to understand and see if they could pilot door-to-door sales. And so we sell coaching. And I said, and the first thing he wrote up there is like, yeah, we bought packages in the past. We've been burned by gurus and shit like this. And I go, look, I'm going to be very clear with you what I can and what I can't do. And if you think, and if you have this misunderstanding of what I'm going to deliver to you, you're going to feel like you got burned. But if I clearly outline the objectives, the deliverables, and what you need to accomplish, then I will feel so good. And I say, I'm going to sell this in 2 parts. The first part's only 10 grand. The second part's going to be 60 to 100 grand. And they were already biting because I approached it that way. They're like, oh, could we give you the 100 grand now? And I was like, no, you can give me the 10 grand. We can see if this makes sense. And then you'll give me the 100 grand and you'll be gladly giving me the 100 grand. Isn't that crazy? And I told them no.
So there's a lot there, guys. If you haven't really been in sales for a while, let's reverse that. So you've now positioned the sale, right? So let's just use that as a use case scenario. Is that okay?
Yes.
Right. So you're setting the stage. You're sharing with them your ultimate end goal, and you're being extremely transparent. But then also you're being respectful to the individual by not over-promising and under-delivering.
Yes.
So let's go through that. And
so I said I had to ask them all their questions, and I said I had to put myself empathize. I had to put myself, if I'm in your shoes, and I committed to 100 grand, and then knowing what I know, this could fail 3 months into this thing based on you not hitting this, this, and this. But you don't know that yet. But I do based on all the questions I've asked you. So I would not feel ethical selling you this $100,000 thing if you can't pass my test and you buy the $10,000 thing. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I said, look, I feel so good and confident. Worst comes to worst. This was the best research project for 10 grand you could have ever had. And the guy goes and he looks at me and he goes, shit, you're right. I spent 20 grand on this dope trip to this girl that I was engaged with, just to come to find out I didn't want to marry her. Best 20 grand I ever spent.
Yeah.
And I go, exactly. Wouldn't you rather have spent 20 grand instead of 500 grand in a settlement on a divorce a year into this thing? He's like,
well, another here example, I mean, I remember I'm building a software, right? And I would go out to these individuals, these companies, and they're like, no, dude, start with us. It's 30 grand. We got to do, market check. We've got to do competitive analysis. We've got to look at the brand and all that. And I was like, oh, okay. So it's 30 to 50K just to get started, just to know if it's actually
going to work. Yeah.
And it's like, well, you compare that to $1 million spent on software, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Like,
that's what I said. I'm like, you're doing 30 million in revenue right now. I'm like, for you to avoid another $1 million mistake in 6 months of your lives going down a rabbit hole that you have no architecture with, that's a lot more expensive than my 10 grand.
Okay, here we go. Another one. Let's talk about intonation and how we leverage our voice, our intonation, right? To where we are high, low, connecting with the individual, leaning in. So share with us a little bit about how you've leveraged those tools. Because in essence, those are tools in your toolbox. Yeah. How have you created scenarios with that?
So every book is going to say a different statistic. So anywhere from 60 to 90%, we'll say, because I don't know which statistic is made up and which one's fact, is nonverbal. So meaning tone, body language, presentation, look, that kind of stuff, right? Eye contact, head nods, all the intonations, right? And I think let's call it 70% is nonverbal. And that means like, what are the things not said that are being said? And that's when it becomes fun. But then you get into the verbal, like the neurolinguistic programming kind of language patterns, the embedded commands, the hypnotic language patterns. And you know, like just changing the way that you drop, or like the end of a sentence where you pause, for example. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, we're selling your cool shoes, and it's like, you know, hey, you're gonna wanna buy my shoes, right? Versus you're gonna wanna buy my shoes, right? Versus you wanna buy my shoes, right?
Oh yeah, question
like
mark.
Question, like all those. I said the same thing.
Yeah.
Where I paused buy. Naturally, your brain's going to remember buy because I put a longer pause right after the word buy. But your conscious mind probably didn't catch that on the first time I said it. Your subconscious mind heard buy. Stronger, meaning I should buy, right?
Yeah.
Like little like things, like where you pause and how you ask the right, like a tag question, or I'm like right, meaning like assumptive.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? One's I really kind of am curious, or one's like a, right? Duh. Like, you're going to agree with this.
No, I like that. Well, hey, and by the way, I will have a link below for taftclothing.com.
Yes,
you
Taft.
Can get these
Sold. Those
shoes,
are fire, bro. Like,
yeah, I've got a link. Everybody, it's 15% off. So,
yes.
Anyway, just selling. You know, we got to sell because we're talking about sales.
Yes, you should buy my book too. Eat We Kill.
There we go.
It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
I feel like we could do more just sales, everything sales, and we're just selling everything. But people aren't feeling like they're sold because they want it.
Yeah.
Because we just, you know, you craft the scenario. You know what else they're going to want is a ticket to D2D Con.
100%.
Did you know that?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're probably going to consider what events and resources would help them sell more. Because the reality is, it's an art. It's like everybody's in sales in some sort of fashion. That's like saying everybody can golf in some sort of fashion. But there's professional golfers that get paid to do it, and there's amateurs that don't. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
And if a professional golfer would look at you like a professional sales rep would look at you and say, how many hours and dollars and coaches and training centers and, you know what I mean, have you put into becoming a professional golfer? I would say the same to what is it have you invested in learn to become a professional salesperson? And so many people where they get the job and then start training in sales. I'm like, you know, you never even trained. You just started doing in sales. That doesn't mean you were professional. It's like me playing golf. I've golfed since I was little. It doesn't mean I'm good. It doesn't mean I'm like an expert at it. It just means I've done it my whole life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you know what you're doing with sales though is you're creating a nomenclature and you're creating a culture of appreciation, of competition, and you know pretty much everything that we've talked about here. And I think you've done a really good job of that with the upcoming event. Of course, it's going to be
Salt Lake, January 8th and 9th, here in Salt Lake City. And we had 3,000 people there last year. It'll be bigger this year. We have Mike Posner, Mary Mack, some entertainment, which would be pretty cool. We have Erwin McManus, Eileen Wilder, awesome sales chick, Colin O'Brady, 11-time world record holder. But like the workshops are world class, like 40 amazing workshop speakers on recruitment, leadership, sales, vendors, 120 vendors that are all different tech and resources from how to go build and scale your business, which is really exciting.
Well, I mean, it certainly is exciting. I think that what you've built takes a lot of determination, consistency. Those are all attributes that a good salesperson needs to have. But I feel like honestly, a good entrepreneur needs to have, in every sense of the word. So, what's like one challenge right now that you're having that you're overcoming, and how do you place around yourself the right team? So let's talk about team culture creation, because you've got an organization here that is growing. So how are you managing that?
Yeah, I mean that's like the hardest part. Like when you go from salesperson to sales leader to then sales director, those are all very different, right? Mm-hmm. And I think I've always had the good MO of like I was a top sales rep everywhere I went, and then I became a sales manager, regional, then vice president, had 100 sales guys. And like each iteration of that, now being an entrepreneur, this is where it gets complicated. Because now it's like, are you the salesperson as the entrepreneur? Are you the sales leader as the entrepreneur? Or are you just like, I need to hire out sales leadership? Does that make sense? Yep. And those iterations of like replacement of yourself is very challenging at times. So I think my biggest challenge is like, I'm the greatest sales trainer teaching sales training, but internally, do I have time and energy to every day practice what I preach inside the company as much as I do outside the company? Does that make sense? So it's like, I am the product a lot of times of our business. So like those guys were in there saying, coach us, train us. But now I'm in San Diego yesterday, tomorrow I'm in Fort Lauderdale, then I go to Orlando, then I go to Mexico. I was in Croatia 2 weeks ago for 10 days. Like, how am I supposed to run sales here when I'm on the road everywhere there? Does that make sense? True. So putting in sales leadership, I think, is one of the most challenging pieces. And there's different types of sales leadership. There's like, I'm a good sales coach, like I can do one-on-one. There's the inspire, lead from the front. There's the managerial, what leads and what's your KPIs and where's your data and who goes to what and what, you know what I mean? Like architecting the sales funnels and the scripting, like all of those take different personalities and strengths. And I think that's where people run into a struggle, is they're trying to find unicorn Captain America to do all of the things for them and somehow recruit and train and manage, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So I think the struggle is finding good sales leaders. And that is one, I think, the biggest deficit. You know, sales is probably the second greatest skill set you could have. In my opinion, the first is leadership. Because it's like one thing to grow by addition, add a customer. It's another thing to grow by multiplication, add reps that add more customers and grow per rep average and the amount each rep can produce. And what's funny is like under different systems and structures and leadership, one rep could go here and do 100 widgets a year. You migrate him under a different leader, different team, different structure, same product. He might do 1,000 units here. And I see it over and over and over again. And so it's like, do you even realize what you're minimizing or maximizing within your sales individuals because your lack of systems or your benefit of systems and leadership? You know what I mean? So internally, personally, that's been my struggle, is just like finding the sales kingpin to lead the charge, because that's what I've always been known as and have been good at, but haven't had yet the time and energy and focus to do.
To create that, yeah, I've realized, obviously standard operating procedures, and then also like having the energy to create the future that somebody can walk into, right? Because whenever we're leading a sale, we're always creating a better, brighter future with a product. So it's almost like you're now having to sell the sales guy a brighter future of a sales managerial position.
Well, yeah, and I had two new sales. Exactly, I had two new sales guys start today. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm in this and that meeting and this, and it's like, yeah, but I'll be there in 30 minutes and I'll finish your onboarding training. You know what I mean? It's just like, lots of systems.
Well, you're learning a lot, and I think the biggest thing is remaining humble enough to know what you don't know, and then continuing to expand from there. But man, this has been a great interview.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate you being transparent, and giving us some tactics, right, to creating trust and building a sales organization, and then also sharing us with your awesome book here, as well as the upcoming D2D Con. Which, if you guys haven't grabbed your tickets, make sure to do so. And any last words for our audience?
No, I mean, here, reach out if you guys have needs, or want to go deeper. Just the D2DExperts.com or the Sam Taggart on Instagram. I'm passionate about this, and I think, and I think it's just because, one, it was what I've done my whole life, but two, I've seen what it can do for others. And when all of a sudden that sales DNA in your brain shifts, and you're like, oh, I know how to sell now, like that confidence of like, I'm a good sales rep versus I'm an aspiring good sales rep, right? Like that shift is life-changing.
I love it. Well, thank you guys for watching the Founders Odyssey podcast, and make sure to like and subscribe, and then also share this with your friends. And until next time, we'll see you guys soon.
See you guys. It's love.